Hi, Al here. Well, John Cristofalusi personally asked me to do the intro for the Adult Party cartoon DVD. And what was I going to say? No? You don't say no to John Cristofalusi. Have you seen that guy lately? He's pumped up. He'll beat the living crud out of you. So here I am, introducing the DVD. Well, like most people in the known world, I guess I was introduced to John's work through a little show called Ren and Stimpy. I think what attracted me to this show was the style of the animation. It was definitely influenced by Bob Clampett and other early Warner Brothers cartoonists, but it had a definite style all of its own, and that was John Kay. But it was an extremely popular show. People were getting Ren tattoos. Young couples were naming their babies Stimpy. It was kind of pathetic, but it was definitely part of the zeitgeist. The animation itself was funny. The drawings were funny. The cartoons looked like they were made by people that actually enjoyed drawing cartoons, which is something you didn't really see a whole lot of on network TV at the time. I'm proud to say that at this very point in the space-time continuum, John Cristofalusi is working on a music video for a song for my next album, which I'm just really thrilled about, because John is a living legend. And I'd be saying that even if he weren't sitting 5 feet away from me right now, because John's work, well, it's an understatement to say it's been influential, because if you look at the animated programming on network TV in the last decade or so, I'd say most of the shows are somewhat inspired or influenced by John Kay's work in Spumco. Whether it's humble homage or outright thievery, people just love to rip off John Kay. He's that good. But I've kind of gotten off on a huge tangent here. I'm here to introduce the Adult Party Cartoon DVD. And this DVD gives you some idea of what John Kay's brain is like when it's not being reined in by network censors. If you're used to the original Ren and Stimpy cartoons, some of this stuff may be a little shocking. This material is not for everybody. My wife hates these cartoons. Hates them. Hates them. My daughter is not allowed to watch these cartoons until she's at least 35. But if you're already warped for life like I am, or if you've got a sick and twisted sense of humor, or if you're just a fan of truly great animation, I think you'll get a big kick out of this. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the Adult Party Cartoon DVD.
Hi folks, John Kay here. I'm the guy that created Ren and Stimpy. So before we get going on these lost episodes, first I want to thank you for being fans and sticking around for what's been 15 years now since the show first came out. So I imagine you were probably like little kids watching it when it first came out in 1990, and now you've grown up and you've experienced changes in your body, and so have Ren and Stimpy. So that's what these lost episodes are about. So let me tell you the story behind this. Back when we were doing the original Ren and Stimpy, we used to get a lot of fan letters from you guys. And every fan would ask, they would ask for requests. Some fans really liked the gross stuff. Other fans would write in and go, hey, we like those hot chicks that you draw, like in Powdered Toast Man. Give me a whole cartoon about hot chicks. So I had this huge sack of letters of requests of, story ideas and certain things that people wanted. So back then we started writing stories directly for the fans, and we pitched a lot of them to Nickelodeon. The second season had some of them, but there were a lot of stories that, they got rejected because maybe they were too much for kids, a little too old, or a little too risky for that time period. In fact, one of them you might be familiar with, Man's Best Friend. That was a cartoon we made in '91, and it didn't see air until Spike TV aired it about 3 years ago. What was that? 2003. So that was a lost episode. But there are about 15 or 20 more lost episodes. 6 of them are on this DVD here, and we made them about 3 years ago because Kevin Kay at Spike TV called me up, and he was a guy that used to be at Nickelodeon way back when. And he said, John, we want you to make the cartoons that got rejected the first time around. And the gloves are off. We're going to put them on in prime time. So do whatever you want and give the fans their money's worth. Give them everything they asked for. So that's what we did. And I tried to get a bunch of the people from the original show back. So we had Vincent Waller, the director of Big Baby Scam and Rubber Nipple Salesman and many others. We had Jim Smith, who did Untamed World and Space Madness and was one of the key designers on the original show. Richard Purcell was one of the writers from the original show. He wrote Powdered Toast Man and many other stories. I found Eddie Fitzgerald, who worked on all the episodes for the first 2 seasons, and he came back. And at the same time, we also recruited a bunch of kids who grew up watching Ren and Stimpy. And they were little kids, and the show, I guess, inspired them to draw. And now they're in their 20s, and they came and they worked on the new episodes. So we had a great crew, and you're going to meet some of them. There's going to be supplemental material at the end of each of the cartoons where you can meet some of the guys and girls that worked on the shows. So you'll find out just what's in their heads. So let me explain a little bit about the difference between Spumco cartoons, why maybe you were still sticking around 15 years later to watch Ren and Stimpy over and over again, and the kind of cartoons that network studios make. See, generally, before we made Ren and Stimpy, I worked on a lot of crappy cartoons in the 1980s, which were all made by committee, and all anybody ever worried about was whether they were going to offend anybody or not. And the way that works is they'll have about 15 network executives sitting around a board table, and the scripts will come in or the storyboards will come in, and each one of them looks for things in the script that offends them. So they might find 3 or 4 things. So you multiply that by 15 and you get 45 to 60 jokes that are just tossed out. All because each person is worried about the one person in America that it might offend. So when we started doing Ren and Stimpy for Nickelodeon, I talked the executives there into not being quite so stingy with the jokes. I don't know how I did it because it was a real revolution. And somehow I talked them into leaving in most of the jokes. They did cut some of them out, and it's kind of amazing what they did leave in. So my theory is, instead of cutting out each joke that might offend somebody, I think just add 20 more jokes and have them like really fast. Bang, 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 bang. So if there's one joke that you don't like, well, hopefully you'll forget about it 5 jokes later. So that's my theory. Just put as many jokes as possible because every person in America and around the world has different tastes. So there's no point in me censoring what you might like or might not like. So Adult Party Cartoon or the Lost Episodes, what you're about to see, are all cartoons written directly for your requests, written back in 1990, 91, and we just left everything in. There was nobody to censor them. Spike TV told us, put everything in it, don't censor it. We'll let the audience tell us what they like and what they don't like. And we had about 50 artists really work hard. People who were dedicated that loved Ren and Stimpy, who really wanted to show what they could do. And some of the animation in this is just, it's some of the best animation that I've ever been involved in on television. And that's because the great artists that worked on it. We had Carbuncle Cartoons in Canada, who was the original animation studio that did the pilot, Big House Blues. And they did Ren Seeks Help and some of the other episodes. So anyways, I hope you like it. Everybody kind of killed themselves to do this. And I'm going to introduce each of the episodes and give you a little backstory on how we came up with the story. And then at the end of each cartoon, go to the supplemental material and you'll find all kinds of really cool behind the scenes stuff and meet some of the artists. All right, sit back and watch this crap.